I never thought a simple mistake could turn your life upside down. But looking back now, I can trace the moment it all began, crystal clear, like a photograph frozen in time. My name is Alex Rivera, I'm 27, and on the surface, I live a perfectly ordinary life. I work as an assistant project coordinator at a small architecture firm, keep my apartment tidy, pay my bills on time, and smile politely at the neighbors. People think I'm quiet, dependable, maybe even boring. They have no idea there's another side to me, one that craves color, softness, and beauty in ways I can't explain. Because beneath the neat shirts and sensible shoes, I'm hiding a secret. I cross-dress. It's not a whim, or a joke, or some passing curiosity. It's a part of who I am, one I've tried to bury, contain, and ignore. At night, when the apartment is quiet and the hum of the city fades to a distant echo, I slip into my private world. Soft dresses, delicate makeup, the thrill of high heels clicking against the wooden floor. It's liberating, terrifying, exhilarating, and shameful all at once. Every time I dress, I feel like I'm stepping into a version of myself I can't show the world. And the truth is, I've never wanted to. Except now, with Isabella. Isabella is different. She's not just my girlfriend. She's sharp, intuitive, and a little too perceptive for my own comfort. She's 25, a behavioral researcher with an uncanny ability to notice the smallest details, the tiniest inconsistencies in a person's behavior. When she looks at me, I can feel it, as if she's seeing the layers I've carefully hidden from everyone else. Sometimes, I catch her studying me, her eyes following my movements, analyzing me without a word. It makes my heart race and my skin prickle in a way that's equal parts exciting and terrifying. We met at a mutual friend's rooftop party. String lights draped above us, the smell of cheap sangria in the air, and laughter spilling over from every corner. She asked me one question that changed everything. Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be someone you're not? I froze. No one had ever spoken so close to my truth. I blurted something stupid. Don't we all? But she just smiled, knowingly, like she already saw the secret I tried so hard to conceal. 8 months later, we moved in together. The apartment is small but sunny, perched on the 8th floor with a view of the city skyline. It's cozy, warm, and meticulously organized. Isabella's touch everywhere, from neatly stacked books to carefully labeled shelves. She keeps our space orderly in a way that makes my heart both swell with love and quake with fear. Because this home, these walls, are where my secret exists. And secrets have a way of never staying hidden forever. At first, I tried to resist. I told myself I could be normal, that cross-dressing was a fantasy I could indulge occasionally, in private. But desire doesn't follow rules, and each time I peeked into my drawer of hidden treasures, the soft peach dress, the brown wig, the delicate pumps, I felt my pulse quicken. I would linger over the clothing, the fabric brushing against my fingertips like a forbidden whisper, imagining the transformation. Each night, I became someone else, someone freer, softer, more alive than the person I showed the world. Yet with freedom comes fear. Isabella's intuition was always there, like a silent predator. Sometimes I'd catch her glancing at me when I thought she wasn't watching. Sometimes her questions were a little too precise, probing at the edges of my reality. I lived in a delicate balance, the thrill of hiding, the risk of discovery, the intoxicating sensation of inhabiting this other identity that felt entirely mine. And every night, the city outside our window seemed to remind me that danger lurks in ordinary places. A neighbor passing by, a sound in the hallway, a misstep with a heel, each one could unravel everything. I remember one particular evening, just as the golden light of sunset began to filter through our blinds. I was halfway through applying foundation, smoothing a soft layer over my cheek, when a sound made my blood run cold. The front door unlocking. My heartbeat skipped. Isabella had always been precise with her schedule, yet here she was, early. My fingers froze, the sponge in my hand hovering over my face. My wig was on the bed beside me, my dress folded neatly but vulnerable on the chair. Every part of my hidden self felt exposed, like the walls themselves were conspiring to reveal me. Alex, she called softly, the voice so calm it made my stomach drop. I panicked, trying to cover up, trying to become the person I pretended to be during the day. But my reflection in the mirror betrayed me. Foundation on my cheeks, lips tinted a soft rose, the half-finished wig lying like a confession. Every detail whispered my truth. I swallowed, heart racing, and tried to speak, but the words failed me. And then, that one feeling I've known my whole life, the fear that comes when someone you love might see the part of you you've hidden, hit with a force I couldn't ignore.
Because Isabella didn't just see me. She saw the world I had built in secret.
And now, for the first time, I knew that the delicate balance I'd maintained for years was about to shatter. The evenings stretched on like an endless pulse of suspense, each second heavier than the last. My hands shook as I rearranged the dress and wig, my mind racing through every possible explanation, every way to deflect, every lie I could tell.
But deep down, I knew there was no hiding it now. Not tonight.
The secret I had nurtured for so long, my escape, my identity, my fantasy, was teetering on the edge of exposure. And Isabella, standing quietly at the doorway, with that calculating, observant gaze, was the only person who could either destroy or understand me. I took a shaky breath, bracing for the moment I would either confess or be caught. And as the last rays of sun spilled into the apartment, I realized that my life was about to change in ways I could never undo. The apartment was quiet, save for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional distant car passing below. Sunlight had fully faded, leaving only the warm glow of the bedside lamp. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the small drawer I had learned to call mine, my secret. Inside was a carefully curated collection, hidden beneath old chargers and miscellaneous papers, dresses, wigs, makeup, delicate jewelry, and a few carefully folded pieces of feminine clothing. Each item held a weight of desire and danger. I opened the drawer slowly, my fingers brushing against a soft pink dress. The fabric was smooth and silky, cool under my fingertips. My chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with anticipation. It had been a week since I last indulged myself, a week of suppressing the part of me that ached to emerge. The dress had been waiting, patient, like it knew exactly when I would return. I hesitated, a flicker of doubt creeping in. What if Isabella came home unexpectedly? What if the door clicked and my secret spilled into the open? The thought made my stomach twist, but it also made my pulse race. Fear and excitement intertwined, creating a thrill I couldn't resist. Slowly, deliberately, I lifted the dress from the drawer, letting it slide through my hands as though it were a fragile treasure. The next step was always the hardest, the transformation. I sat in front of the mirror, breathing in shallow, uneven gasps. Each movement felt significant, each choice deliberate. I pulled on the dress, feeling it settle over my shoulders, hugging my body in a way that both excited and terrified me. My reflection stared back, a stranger wearing my face, and for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine living fully in this other identity. Makeup came next. Foundation, eyeshadow, mascara, blush, each stroke of the brush was a heartbeat, each swipe a confession. I painted my face not to deceive anyone but to reveal a hidden truth, a side of myself that only existed here, in the quiet of the night. The brush felt weighty in my hand, almost ritualistic. With every flick and dab, the man the world saw slipped further away, replaced by someone softer, more vulnerable, yet undeniably powerful in her own way. I stopped for a moment, gazing at the reflection. There she was, me, yet not me. A girl in the mirror with my eyes, my lips, my frame, but transformed. A dress that whispered secrets, hair that framed my face in delicate curls, lips soft and inviting. The sensation was intoxicating. I felt both exposed and invincible. Vulnerable, yet unafraid. Then came the shoes, heels that clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. They made me aware of every inch of my body, every subtle sway in my posture. Each step reminded me that I was walking a tightrope between worlds, the ordinary life outside these walls and the thrilling, forbidden one inside. I practiced a small spin in the mirror, letting the dress flare slightly, admiring the way the fabric moved. It was absurd, ridiculous even, but it was also perfect. And yet, the fear never left. The sound of the front door unlocking, a creak in the hallway, the faintest hint of footsteps, it could all come at any moment. I imagined Isabella walking in, eyes narrowing as she noticed the transformation, the evidence of my secret life. My stomach turned at the thought. Would she be angry? Hurt? Disgusted? Or would she understand? I didn't know. I had never risked showing her fully, never allowed her to witness this side of me. Every noise made me flinch. A car honked outside, and my heart jumped. I reminded myself to breathe, to slow down, but the tension built with each passing second. My reflection in the mirror became a focal point for every emotion I felt: desire, Fear, excitement, shame, and a strange exhilaration that coursed through me like electricity. I began experimenting with my hair, adjusting the wig so that it fell just right. A strand slipped, brushing against my cheek, and I froze. The simplest misstep could betray me. My hands shook slightly as I tucked it behind my ear, careful not to disturb the perfect curl. I applied lipstick carefully, pressing my lips together to check for smudges, each motion deliberate. It was a meticulous dance, a balancing act, a ritual that reminded me of how fragile my secret truly was. Then, inevitably, came the moment of vulnerability. I approached the full-length mirror. Standing there, in heels, in the dress, fully made up, I examined myself from every angle. I noticed how my shoulders had softened, how the fabric accentuated curves I never allowed myself to see. I was trembling, not just from the thrill, but from the realization of how deeply I craved this identity, how much it had become a part of me. A sudden sound froze me mid-motion, a soft click outside the bedroom door. My pulse doubled, sweat prickling at the back of my neck. I wasn't sure if it was the apartment settling or someone approaching. My hand flew to the dresser, clutching the nearest item, a small compact mirror, ready to shield my reflection, ready to hide, ready to revert to the persona the world knew.
But the moment passed. Silence returned.
I exhaled slowly, the tension in my body easing slightly. And in that quiet, I realized something fundamental. Every second spent like this, every risk taken, only made the thrill stronger. Fear and desire had merged into a single pulse, a heartbeat that propelled me forward into something I couldn't ignore. I practiced walking through the apartment, each step calculated, each sway deliberate. The dress shifted with every movement, the heels clicking in time with my racing pulse. I experimented with my voice, softening the tone, testing the way it felt on my lips, listening to the sound in the empty room. Each action was both a rehearsal and a revelation, exposing the layers of identity I had carefully hidden from everyone. And then came the small, symbolic gestures that made the transformation feel complete, adjusting a bracelet on my wrist, curling my fingers delicately, tilting my head just so in the mirror. Every subtle motion reinforced the duality of my life, reminding me that I was both Alex, the man Isabella believed she knew, and someone else entirely, someone fragile, beautiful, and uncontainable. I paused at the dresser, gazing at the array of items laid out before me. Each object, a brush, a wig, a dress, a lipstick, was more than just a tool of transformation. It was a symbol of my secret life, a tangible reminder of the freedom I could never fully admit to. And as I held the dress against my chest, inhaling its scent, I felt the weight of inevitability pressing down. The secret could not stay hidden forever. One wrong sound, one misstep, one unexpected return could unravel everything. And yet, in that vulnerability, there was clarity. For the first time, I understood the intensity of what I was feeling, not shame, not fear alone, but a potent mixture of exhilaration, identity, and longing. This was who I was when the world wasn't looking, and it was a truth I could no longer deny to myself. The thrill of the night, the intimacy of the ritual, and the looming possibility of discovery coalesced into a tension I could almost touch. Every shadow of the apartment seemed alive with potential threat, and every reflection in the mirror seemed to warn me. The moment of reckoning was approaching. And when it came, there would be no turning back. The apartment had settled into a deceptive quiet, the kind that feels heavier than silence. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a shout. Every distant horn outside reminded me how vulnerable I was. I was fully dressed now, the soft pink fabric hugging my shoulders, the wig cascading in perfect curls. My heels clicked with a rhythm that made the space seem too small, too exposed, but also intoxicatingly mine. I moved to the living room, feeling the weight of the dress and the unfamiliar sway of my hips. The mirror in the corner caught my reflection from a distance, and I froze. There I was, Alex, yet someone else entirely, someone soft, delicate, fragile, and utterly alive.
It was both empowering and terrifying.
I reached for the compact mirror again, adjusting a stray curl, smoothing the foundation at the jawline. Every movement carried meaning now. I had to be perfect, not for anyone else, but because the walls could hear, and the slightest imperfection could be noticed. The thrill of risk was like electricity through my veins. I laughed softly at myself, a high, airy sound that startled me. The sound of my own voice, unfamiliar in this register, made me flinch. Could Isabella recognize it? Could anyone? The question both thrilled and terrified me. I wandered toward the kitchen,
each step calculated. I ran my fingers along the countertop, feeling the cool surface, imagining my secret life as a permanent reality. What would it feel like to live like this openly? To let the person in the mirror breathe outside the walls? My mind spun with the possibilities, but reality was relentless. Isabella could return at any moment.
She could open the door, and every delicate fabrication would crumble in an instant.
The phone vibrated softly on the counter. I jumped, nearly losing my balance in the heels.
A message from a colleague flashed across the screen, a mundane work reminder, entirely ordinary, but in that moment it felt like a potential trap. I tucked the phone into my dress pocket, hands trembling. Even mundane objects now carried the weight of danger. Every sound was amplified, every shadow seemed to whisper secrets. I returned to the bedroom to inspect the outfit once more. The wig needed a slight adjustment. A curl had loosened, and I knew that if it fell during a potential encounter, it would betray me completely. I pressed it into place, feeling the familiar thrill of transformation coursing through me. This was the duality of my life, moments of pure exhilaration, offset by the persistent, gnawing fear of exposure.
Then came the makeup.
I reapplied the blush, careful to accentuate the curve of my cheeks without overdoing it. Each stroke was deliberate, a declaration of identity and defiance. Mascara lengthened my lashes, darkening them in contrast to my pale eyes. Each swipe was a tactile confirmation. This wasn't just dress-up, this was a transformation that touched my very soul. I moved to the small desk by the window and perched on the edge, swinging my legs slightly to test the heels.
The sensation was alien yet thrilling.
I imagined walking down a crowded street like this, navigating the world in a body that wasn't fully mine, yet somehow, in this moment, completely me.
The vulnerability was intoxicating.
Every nerve in my body hummed with the tension of possibility, discovery, thrill, exposure, acceptance.
A knock at the door froze me mid-breath. My heart jumped into my throat. I wasn't expecting anyone. Could it be Isabella?
Or worse, a neighbor? I froze, debating whether to answer, whether to retreat, whether to hide. The knock came again, firmer this time.
Panic surged.
I scanned the room for a hiding place, something to conceal my transformation.
There was nothing. My secret was laid bare.
I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Slowly, deliberately, I approached the door, hoping against hope that whoever it was would leave.
The doorknob turned slightly.
I pressed my back against the wall, heels clicking softly as I prepared to retreat. A familiar voice called from the hallway. "Alex."
It was Isabella. My stomach lurched.
She sounded calm, almost teasing, but every fiber of my being screamed danger. I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself. Her footsteps were deliberate, measured, echoing through the apartment like a countdown. I had to make a decision: hide, revert to Alex, or confront the possibility of exposure head-on. The panic, the thrill, the vulnerability, they all collided inside me, leaving me dizzy and breathless. She entered the living room, eyes immediately scanning the space. Her gaze fell on me, lingering on the hem of the dress, the delicate curves of my form, the wig slightly askew. She tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips, not judgment, but curiosity, calculation. "Something smells different," she said softly, almost teasingly. I froze. Every instinct screamed to speak, to hide, to flee. But my reflection in the mirror reminded me, I had embraced this transformation.
I had stepped into it fully. There was no going back. She took a slow step closer, eyes locked on mine.
"Alex, or should I say," her voice trailed off, teasing but deliberate, testing me.
The room was thick with tension.
Every sound, the hum of the heater, the click of the heels, the faint rustle of fabric, was amplified.
My pulse thundered in my ears.
I realized in that moment that this was no longer just about the thrill of dressing up, it was about trust, vulnerability, and the delicate dance of secrecy. I inhaled sharply, lifting my chin, meeting her gaze. The room seemed to shrink, every shadow pressing in on us, every breath magnified. I was exposed, yet I had never felt more alive. And then, as if to punctuate the moment, a small slip, a curl of the wig fell over my shoulder, brushing my collarbone. I froze.
Isabella's eyes flicked to it instantly.
The tiniest imperfection, the smallest detail, enough to test the limits of my carefully guarded secret. She didn't react immediately. Instead, she tilted her head, watching, waiting. The silence stretched, heavy, pregnant with possibility. I realized that whatever happened next could change everything, our relationship, my secret, the delicate balance I had maintained for months. And in that suspended moment, I understood something profound. This transformation was no longer just a private thrill. It was a test, a challenge, a collision of desire and fear that could not be ignored. The night had just begun, and already I was teetering on the edge of discovery, every heartbeat a countdown toward the inevitable. The apartment felt smaller than ever, each shadow stretching across the walls like a silent observer. My heartbeat rattled in my ears, echoing in the quiet space. Every movement I made in heels and a silk dress felt amplified, weighted by the possibility that Isabella might fully see me, really see me, and not just the Alex she thought she knew.
She hadn't said much since entering.
Her eyes roamed subtly, calculating, yet her expression remained unreadable. I could feel her presence in every corner, in every reflection, even in the faint hum of the heater. Time had slowed, stretched to an unbearable length. I realized I was holding my breath, waiting for a sound, a movement, a sign that the delicate bubble of secrecy I had lived in was about to burst. And then it happened. A knock, louder this time, at the front door.
My heart slammed against my ribcage.
Isabella stiffened, her gaze flicking toward the entrance. I froze, unsure whether to answer or hide.
The sound of my own pulse was deafening.
I knew instinctively, whoever was behind that door could ruin everything, could strip away the identity I had cherished, the freedom I had embraced in secret. Hesitating would be fatal, yet so would moving too quickly. She stepped closer to me, hand brushing my arm, not aggressively, not even firmly, but in a way that reminded me she was still a force of control in this room.
Her eyes locked on mine.
"Do you want me to answer it?" she asked softly, almost teasing, but with an undercurrent I couldn't ignore.
I shook my head slightly, swallowing hard.
I don't know who it could be," I admitted, voice quivering despite my attempt at calm. Her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile.
"Then let's find out," she said. And with that, she moved deliberately toward the door. Panic surged through me.
My heels clicked sharply against the floor as I followed, each step betraying my nerves. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my attention. The dress clinging to my shoulders, the curls of my wig perfectly framing my face, the lipstick smudged slightly from nerves. I looked vulnerable, exposed, alive in a way that terrified me. The doorknob turned slowly, and a familiar face appeared. My best friend, Ryan, grinning like he had no idea of the storm he was walking into. "Hey, Alex, hey," he said, blinking at the sight of me fully transformed. His eyes widened, scanning the wig, the dress, the heels, the makeup.
I felt every second stretch out painfully.
Isabella's gaze sharpened, analytical and unwavering. "I think it's time you explain," she said simply, her tone neither angry nor shocked, just pointed, precise. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. Fear, excitement, and shame collided, making me feel both smaller and larger at once. This was the moment I had both anticipated and dreaded, the unveiling of my secret, my private world now laid bare in the presence of two people whose opinions mattered more than anyone else's in the world. Ryan's face turned a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "Alex, is this you?" he asked, voice quiet, almost reverent. I nodded, barely managing to whisper, "Yes, it's me." The room fell into an awkward, charged silence. Every heartbeat felt audible. Isabella's eyes never left me, her expression was unreadable. Ryan shifted slightly, unease radiating from him, but curiosity keeping him rooted in place. "Why?" Ryan finally asked, the single word trembling in the space between us. I swallowed, realizing the complexity of my own answer. "Because I can't not be me. Not like this," I admitted, gesturing vaguely toward the dress, the wig, the makeup.
"It's a part of me that I've had to hide."
I didn't think anyone could understand. Isabella stepped closer, closing the space between us. Her gaze softened slightly, but there was still an intensity there that made me quiver. "And yet you've been hiding it from me all this time," she said. The words weren't accusatory, they were almost reflective, but they carried a weight that struck me harder than any anger could. I nodded, guilt bubbling up.
"I was scared," I admitted.
"I didn't want to lose you, or anyone else. I thought, if I kept it hidden, maybe I could protect myself from being judged, from being rejected." Ryan's eyebrows furrowed, trying to comprehend, while Isabella's gaze remained locked on mine. There was a long pause, a silence so thick it felt like the walls themselves were listening. I realized then that this was no longer just about cross-dressing, it was about trust, identity, and the fragile balance of relationships. Isabella stepped back slightly, letting the tension breathe, but her next words cut sharply through the quiet. So tonight, you decided to show me. Even with me here, even knowing the risk. Yes, I said, voice stronger than I expected. I needed to. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Her eyes softened slightly, and she reached out, touching my cheek with a careful hand. The gesture was gentle, but it sent a shiver through me. And what if I don't accept this? She asked quietly. The question, though whispered, felt like a challenge. My stomach twisted, the heels under my feet suddenly heavy. Then, I don't know, I admitted honestly. But I had to be honest, at least tonight. I couldn't stay in hiding forever. Ryan's reaction was more pragmatic, but still layered with emotion. Alex, I didn't expect this. But I get it. I think you're being brave. The relief that washed over me was almost unbearable. In the midst of fear, of potential rejection, there was also recognition, understanding, even if tentative. My chest felt both heavy and light, burdened with vulnerability yet soaring with the relief of exposure. Isabella studied me for a long moment, then finally nodded slowly. You're right, she said, almost to herself. You shouldn't hide who you are. But that doesn't mean it's easy, or simple. I nodded, heart racing. The danger wasn't over. The tension hadn't fully dissolved. But in that moment, with her eyes on me and Ryan's tentative support nearby, I felt something I hadn't felt before, the raw, unfiltered acceptance of being seen, of being revealed. And then, a sound from the bedroom. A small, metallic clatter. My heart jumped. I glanced toward the mirror in the hallway. My wig, a curl had slipped, falling over my shoulder again. I froze, realizing that even now, the fragile veneer of control could shatter at any second. Isabella noticed it too. Her gaze flicked to the fallen curl, then back to me. She didn't say anything, but the intensity of her stare made my pulse spike. This was it, the moment when the stakes had peaked. Every secret, every fear, every hidden desire was exposed in a single, fragile heartbeat. I realized then that this night would change everything. Nothing would be the same. My secret, once hidden, was now an intricate dance of revelation, acceptance, and uncertainty. And the choices I made next would determine whether I could live fully as the person I truly was, or whether I would retreat, hiding again in the shadows of fear. The room held its breath. Every second felt suspended. And in that suspended moment, I understood the precariousness of my situation. I was fully revealed, fully vulnerable, fully alive. The apartment seemed to hold its breath. Even Ryan, usually casual and carefree, seemed on edge, shifting uneasily from foot to foot. Isabella's gaze never wavered, sharp and calculating, assessing every detail of my appearance, every twitch of nervousness, every micro-expression betraying my inner turmoil. I tried to steady my breathing, forcing calm where there was none. But the heels beneath me felt heavier, the dress tighter, and the wig suddenly itchy on my scalp. The smallest slip, a fold of fabric, a misplaced hair strand, could reveal the fragility of the careful facade I had built. Then came the first unexpected obstacle. A loud thump from the bedroom. A picture frame had fallen. My reflexes kicked in immediately. I froze, the blood draining from my face. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the confined space. Isabella's head snapped toward the source, her eyes narrowing. Ryan glanced toward the room, confusion and curiosity warring in his expression. I had to think fast. My hands flew toward the wig and dress, adjusting both in an almost frantic motion. Every second counted. It's nothing, I said, voice trembling slightly, though I tried to mask it with casual authority. Just, the frame fell. Isabella didn't respond immediately. She tilted her head, scrutinizing me. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until she finally asked, Alex, are you sure? Her tone carried the weight of challenge, the intensity of someone who could sense deception without words. Yes, I whispered, though I knew the tremor in my voice betrayed me. Ryan, ever practical, took a tentative step forward. Do you want me to check it out? He offered, glancing between Isabella and me. I shook my head vehemently, knowing that any movement toward the bedroom could expose more than I intended. The thrill and terror were inseparable now. The danger of discovery mingled with exhilaration, making every heartbeat thunder in my ears. Then came the second obstacle, something I hadn't anticipated. Isabella reached out, her hand grazing my arm lightly but purposefully, guiding me toward the bedroom. Her eyes bore into mine with an intensity that left me breathless. "Let's see this together," she said softly. Panic surged through me. The idea of confronting the evidence, of showing her every detail of my transformation up close, was almost unbearable. My chest tightened, throat dry. And yet, beneath the fear, there was an undeniable thrill, the kind that comes from standing fully exposed, raw, and alive. We entered the bedroom cautiously. The fallen frame lay on the floor, tilted awkwardly, but nothing else seemed disturbed. Yet I knew Isabella's attention wasn't on the frame, it was on me. Every detail, from the curve of my hips to the stray curl on my wig, was scrutinized. My heart raced, adrenaline spiking as if warning me that one misstep could unravel everything. And then she spoke, softly but firmly. "Alex, I need to know, how deep does this go?" The question struck me like a lightning bolt. How deep? I realized then that my secret life, my indulgence in this hidden identity, had always been personal, private. But now, with her watching, with Ryan present, it was exposed on an emotional and psychological level I hadn't prepared for. I swallowed hard, struggling to find words that could encapsulate months of hidden desires, fear, and exhilaration. It's everything," I admitted finally, voice barely audible. "It's who I am when no one's looking. It's not just clothes or makeup, it's me." The room held its breath. Ryan seemed to digest the weight of my confession, while Isabella's expression softened, but only slightly. There was no judgment yet, but the intensity of her gaze reminded me that acceptance, if it came, would not be immediate or simple. Then came the most dramatic obstacle yet. My wig slipped slightly, brushing my shoulder and falling partially over my face. My hands shot out instinctively, trying to replace it, but Isabella caught the motion. "It's okay," she said softly, almost whispering. Her calmness contrasted sharply with the chaos coursing through me, but it also amplified my vulnerability. I realized then that every small imperfection, every lapse in control, was magnified under her scrutiny. The stakes had reached their peak. I was exposed in body, mind, and soul. Every heartbeat, every gesture, every glance was a test of trust, courage, and identity. Ryan, sensing the tension, took a cautious step back. "Alex, you're incredible," he said quietly. Seriously, I don't even know what to say. But, wow. His words, though supportive, didn't reduce the suspense. If anything, they heightened it, reminding me that the secret was no longer mine alone. It had entered the world, into the space of people whose opinions, love, and acceptance mattered deeply. And then came a twist I hadn't foreseen. Isabella leaned closer, her eyes flicking to the mirror. "Look at yourself," she said, almost commandingly. "Really look." I followed her gaze, seeing the reflection of the girl I had become, the reflection that I had only ever allowed myself to see in private. The heels, the dress, the makeup, the wig, all of it reflected in the glass. The person staring back was both me and not me, fragile yet bold, vulnerable yet powerful. Tears pricked at my eyes. I had never allowed anyone else to witness this level of transformation. And now, with Isabella's calm but intense presence and Ryan's tentative support, the reflection felt like a revelation, a confession, and a dare all at once. Isabella's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. "Do you see why this matters to you?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered, voice breaking. "It's everything." She nodded slowly. The room was quiet again, but the tension had not lifted, it had simply evolved. The danger of exposure, the thrill of being caught, the delicate balance of trust and identity, all hung in the air like an unspoken promise. Then, without warning, a sudden noise from the hallway, keys turning in the lock, sent my pulse racing. The front door was opening again. I froze, every muscle taut, heels digging into the floor. Isabella's eyes widened slightly. Ryan's face paled. The shadow in the hallway grew longer, moving closer. And in that suspended moment, I realized. The secret I had held for months, the thrill and vulnerability I had embraced, the transformation I had lived for in private, All of it was about to collide with reality in a way I could not control. The door creaked open fully. A silhouette appeared, but the dim light obscured the face. All I could feel was the air thickening with suspense, the room shrinking around us, the weight of exposure pressing down.
I glanced at Isabella.
Her expression was unreadable, calm, calculating, almost teasing. Then I looked at Ryan, whose face reflected curiosity, fear, and awe. And I understood, fully and completely. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Every secret, every desire, every hidden identity was about to face the ultimate test. The front door creaked wider, letting in a narrow slice of light that split the apartment like a blade. Shadows danced across the walls, flickering over the dress, the curls of the wig, the trembling fingers clutching at the hem of the fabric. My heart thundered so loudly it seemed to fill the room. Isabella stood calm, poised, her eyes locked on mine. Ryan froze mid-step, a mixture of fear and fascination on his face. And in that thin beam of light, I glimpsed the silhouette at the doorway. Someone new, someone unexpected. The shape shifted slightly. A familiar figure. My stomach knotted, muscles tensed. This was the final test, the ultimate moment where my hidden life collided with reality. Every secret, every choice, every thrill of crossdressing that I had hoarded in private now stood exposed, vulnerable to judgment, or something far more dangerous. I took an instinctive step back, heels clicking against the floor. The wig shifted again, a curl brushing my shoulder, a small betrayal of my carefully constructed image. Isabella's eyes flicked to it, then back to mine, silently signaling both awareness and patience. Ryan's gaze darted nervously between us, sensing that the moment was bigger than he could fully grasp. The figure in the doorway finally spoke, voice casual but piercing. "Alex." Time seemed to stop. My pulse hammered in my ears. My throat tightened. I felt the weight of months, maybe years, of secret indulgence, now poised on the knife edge of discovery. "Yes," I managed to whisper, my voice cracking. The word felt impossibly small against the enormity of the situation. A faint smirk touched the lips of the newcomer. "I thought you might be here, alone," the voice continued, soft but carrying an edge that made my knees threaten to buckle. "But I see I'm not." The room felt smaller, tighter. Shadows seemed to creep in from the corners, suffocating. I realized, with a chill, that this person, whoever they were, knew more than I had expected. Knew enough to see through the delicate balance I had maintained between my secret and the outside world. Isabella stepped forward slightly, almost protective but calm. Her hand brushed mine briefly, a silent reassurance. Yet her eyes held the same intensity as before, measuring, evaluating, aware that this was the turning point. Ryan's mouth opened, then closed again, uncertain what to say. His presence suddenly felt both comforting and irrelevant. The stakes were no longer about casual acceptance, they were about exposure, control, and the unknown consequences of being truly seen. I felt a shiver run through me. The wig shifted again, a curl falling across my cheek. I instinctively brushed it aside, but the action drew the newcomer's attention. Their gaze sharpened. A single raised eyebrow, a small step forward, and the tension in the room became almost unbearable. "Interesting choice of attire," the figure said lightly, voice smooth but with a subtle undertone that hinted at judgment, curiosity, and perhaps amusement. The words were casual, but the effect was explosive. I realized I was completely exposed, every secret laid bare in the quiet intensity of that moment. My chest tightened. My hands trembled slightly, caught between the desire to retreat, to hide, to flee, and the thrill of being fully revealed, fully seen, fully alive. Every nerve screamed in panic and exhilaration at the same time. Isabella didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled faintly, enigmatic, as if she knew something I didn't. Her presence was both grounding and terrifying, a reminder that the balance of trust, desire, and fear was precarious and fragile. I glanced at Ryan, whose eyes were wide with a mix of awe and anxiety. He clearly didn't know what to do, caught between disbelief and a reluctant fascination. The newcomer stepped closer, the light from the hallway catching just enough detail to make me see their expression clearly. And in that split second, I realized, their reaction was not what I had expected. Not shock, not anger, not ridicule. It was something else entirely. Intrigue, recognition, and a faint, teasing smile that promised the stakes had only just begun. Every instinct screamed at me, this was the point of no return. Every secret, Every thrill, every carefully curated part of my private life was now at risk of exposure. Every decision I made in the next seconds could change everything: our relationships, my identity, the fragile control I had over who I was and who I could be. I tried to speak, to explain, but my voice failed me. The room was charged with an almost tangible tension, a suspended moment in which time itself seemed to hold its breath.
Every heartbeat was a countdown.
Every glance a potential revelation. Isabella's hand found mine again, and I felt the warmth of reassurance, though it did little to calm the storm inside me. Ryan shifted nervously, and the newcomer's gaze never wavered. And then the words came, slow, deliberate, teasing, leaving the room hanging in suspense.
So,
Alex, the newcomer said, their voice smooth, almost playful. Care to tell me what's really going on here?
The room froze. My mind raced.
Every secret, every hidden desire, every vulnerable choice was now on the table. Every carefully maintained boundary had vanished. And yet, beneath the fear, beneath the panic, there was a pulse of exhilaration, the thrill of the unknown, the intoxicating edge of discovery, the raw power of being fully exposed. I took a shuddering breath, feeling the fabric of the dress cling to my skin, the wig settle into place, the heels grounding me in a strange, exhilarating tension. My gaze flicked to Isabella. Her expression was unreadable. Ryan's eyes were wide, and the newcomer's smile widened just slightly, almost as if they knew something I did not. The seconds stretched into eternity. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to shrink back into safety. But another part, the part that had lived for this moment in secret, the part that had embraced every thrill and vulnerability, urged me forward. And in that suspended heartbeat, the apartment seemed to pulse with the possibility of revelation, confrontation, and transformation. The final question hung in the air, unanswered, electric with suspense. Would I survive exposure? Would my secret become my liberation, or my undoing? And as the door remained open, the light spilling into the room, the three of us frozen in a tableau of fear, desire, and uncertainty, I realized one undeniable truth: nothing would ever be the same again.